people. Like, I have friends that I obviously enjoy being around, but like, if I'm around too many friends for too long of a time, I genuinely feel drained, and there are just days that, and that's what I was looking forward to with spring break. It's like, after everything that happened at the end of the marking period, I'm like, I just want to go home and be left alone. I don't want to be near anybody, because like, even just being in a room filled with people, even if none of them are interacting with me, fills me with anxiety, because like, I'm not claustrophobic. I've literally sat in a closet before and felt completely fine. But if I'm in, like, for example, our gym, whenever we were inside and we were doing gym and some of the other classes entered, I always felt claustrophobic even if it was like a giant space, and technically we could fit more people in there and it wouldn't be crowded, but because there were already so many people there, they were all like much closer than I would have expected, because it's a big open area. I was feeling claustrophobic.
All right, so that's a very interesting point. Let me kind of expound on that by asking, have you felt that way since COVID, or does this have nothing to do with the isolation we went through during COVID?
I feel like it probably does have something to do with COVID. I know that I was just expanding my social circle a little more when I was in 7th grade when COVID ended up happening. I wouldn't really say I was incredibly social, because I still didn't join any clubs at that point, and technically I never really had the chance, but I also never looked. And then COVID happened, and then I pretty much missed the rest of middle school socially at the very least. And then high school rolled around, and then I kind of just didn't. I mean, I still made friends. In fact, some of the friends I've made in high school I didn't really know until I was in high school. So I've still been making friends. It's just, I found I don't I think my social anxiety has kind of gone up because of COVID, but it hasn't gone like down at all.
Right. And that makes sense. I mean, COVID, I think, had that effect on a lot of us. I feel the same way. Like where were we at? Well, we were at a show this weekend, and Mommy and I went to the show, and there was one room that was packed with people. There was one room, and you've seen the rooms. There's a new gym and an old gym at this high school, and they're roughly the same size room, and the other room didn't have as many in there. And I could literally feel like it was hard to breathe in a room. Like, there wasn't any problem with the air. There wasn't some outbreak. The doors were wide open, but just that sense of the world's closing in on me with so many people around me, I get that feeling. And I attributed that to COVID more than anything else.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, and we'll talk about technology and teen isolation. We'll see if that has any effect on you as well. We'll be right back.
Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Teens. Today we're talking about teen isolation, and now we're going to talk about the impact technology has on such a subject. In an era characterized by technological advancements and digital connectivity, the role of social media in shaping various aspects of modern life cannot be understated. Among its notable impacts is its influence on the social behaviors of teenagers, a demographic particularly susceptible to its allure. The pervasiveness of digital forms has led to a shift in how adolescents interact with their peers, altering the dynamics of real-world relationships and, in some cases, leading to a sense of withdrawal and isolation.
So let's talk virtual connections versus real-life connections. The proliferation of social media platforms has introduced a novel dimension to interpersonal communication. Adolescents, in particular, are drawn to these platforms as a means of interaction, often preferring virtual exchanges over face-to-face conversations. For socially awkward teenagers, the digital realm offers a safe haven for the potential discomfort of direct interactions. The comfort of their bedrooms becomes a conduit for relating to peers through texts, comments, and shares on platforms like Facebook. This virtual interface creates a sense of security that may not be present in physical encounters.
Research conducted by the Pew Research Center provides insight into the changing landscape of teenage social interactions. A mere 25% of teenagers reportedly spent time with friends outside of school on a daily basis. This statistic underscores a substantial shift from past generations, where in-person interactions were the norm. The prevalence of online connections seems to be shaping a new norm for social engagement among adolescents.
So, what are the pitfalls of isolation? Experts highlight the adverse consequences of this technological shift. They observe that many teenagers find solace in their rooms, engaging in endless texting. That almost got dirty real quick there. Snapchatting and app-based interactions. While these virtual exchanges may give the illusion of connection, they can exacerbate the fear of missing out, or FOMO, we've talked about on the podcast before. This creates a paradox wherein the constant stream of digital interactions intensifies feelings of loneliness. The absence of face-to-face interactions further accentuates the isolation experienced by teenagers.
The frequency of teenagers' engagement with social media platforms is becoming increasingly recognized as a potential factor in their emotional well-being. So many big words, it's hard to speak. A recent CNN study delved into the relationship between 13-year-olds and their social media usage. The findings revealed a noteworthy correlation between the frequency of checking networking sites and emotional distress. Participants who checked platforms like Facebook between 50 and 100 times a day experienced a 37% increase in distress compared to those who engaged more infrequently. Those who checked over 100 times a day exhibited an even higher increase of 47%.
I'm on the same page as you, apparently. The integration of technology and social media into the lives of teenagers has redefined their social interactions and, in some cases, led to a sense of isolation. The allure of virtual connections can become a refuge for those who find face-to-face interactions daunting. However, this shift has also unintended consequences, magnifying feelings of loneliness and FOMO. As the frequency of social media use correlates with emotional distress, it's essential to recognize the complex interplay between digital engagement and adolescent well-being. Addressing this issue involves striking a balance between digital interactions and meaningful face-to-face connections, acknowledging the evolving landscape of teenage relationships in the digital age. So how much of a user are you of digital communication? I know you text, I know you email. Do you find that that's your preferred way of getting in touch with your friends, or are you more likely to pick up the phone and have a conversation with them?
I mean, I can talk to my friends through calls, but it honestly rarely happens at this point. I used to have nightly chats with my one friend, and then we kind of stopped them because we really would just be on the phone for an hour and not talk to each other. So
you run out of stuff to talk about at some point, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel or how do you perceive the balance between your online interactions through social media and your offline face-to-face interactions with your friends? Do you feel like one type of interaction is more fulfilling or meaningful than the other? And if so, why?
That's the thing. I technically have more interaction with my friends in face-to-face than I really do online anymore. Like, occasionally I'll text my friends will text me and I'll text back and then we have a conversation. Sometimes it usually would result in us hanging out outside of school, or we just hang out at school if we have the same class or whatever. I don't really know the best answer for it, because like when I do text with my friends I don't really know, because like when I text my friends, it's like, yeah, I'm interacting with them and I understand it. And like we do have like our own jokes when we text. And I have noticed that like we aren't able to really tell sarcasm apart. So I can understand that being like a deterrent. But like when it's also face to face, I don't know if fulfillment is really the word I describe.
Okay. All right. I see that. We're going to take our last break, and when we come back, we'll talk about isolation and avoidance behavior.
Are you tired of your favorite gaming podcast finishing with a play?
Oh, no!
Well, check out No Credits Rolled, where we play the games but rarely finish them. How's it going, folks? I'm Sam Whalen, your friendly host at No Credits Rolled, the ultimate gaming podcast, where we dish out the latest scoops and reviews on all your beloved video games.
Hey, listen!
Not only that, but we spice things up with some guest interviews and even give you, yes, you, a chance to have your say. Tune in every other week for a fresh dose of No Credits Rolled, available on all major podcast platforms, and hit us up on social media at No Credits Rolled. So why wait? Let's dive into the gaming world together, where finishing games is optional, but the fun is guaranteed.
Welcome back to Insights into Teens, where we're talking about teen isolation. And now we're going to talk about the difference between teen isolation or teen avoidance behavior. And, if there is one. Teen isolation often manifests as a form of avoidance behavior in adolescence. This behavior, also known as avoidance coping, involves actions aimed at evading specific thoughts or emotions. Okay, sorry, just felt called out there for a moment. Give me a minute. Avoidance behaviors encompasses steering clear of places, scenarios, or thoughts that trigger discomfort or distress. These behaviors can take various forms among teens. They may involve outright refusal to engage in certain activities or conversations. Social situations, including challenging discussions, might be intentionally avoided. Additionally, some teenagers might strive to minimize leaving their homes, leading to self-imposed isolation from both peers and the broader society. In this way, teenage isolation emerges as a consequence of avoidance behaviors, reflecting the complex interplay between emotional response and social interaction.
So how do we combat teenage isolation? Teenage isolation has become an increasingly prevalent concern in today's digital age, often exacerbated by the allure of technology and virtual connections. To address this issue, and promote healthy mental well-being, parents play a pivotal role in guiding their teenagers toward real-world interactions and experiences. Here's 5 effective strategies that parents can employ to help teenagers overcome isolation, improve mental health, and establish meaningful connections. And I think you're going to find a lot of these are very similar to the techniques that we've talked about over and over again on how to improve emotional well-being. The first is to embrace nature's healing power. Engaging with the natural world offers a potent remedy against isolation-induced stress and anxiety. Research has consistently demonstrated that spending time outdoors positively impacts mood and the nervous system. In particular, outdoor activities can lower cortisol levels, reducing stress. Encourage teenagers to partake in activities like hiking, swimming, or simply strolling through a park. Or in your case, walking around the block, getting out and just getting some fresh air. By incorporating these activities into their routine, teens can experience a tangible improvement in their mental state.
The next is to instill the joy of volunteering. Volunteering not only benefits others, but also significantly enhances one's mental well-being. Adolescents can find a sense of purpose and fulfillment by contributing to their community. Tailor volunteering opportunities to their interest. For instance, animal-loving teens can volunteer at shelters or stables, while those inclined towards younger children can participate in camps or community centers. By engaging in these activities, teenagers not only combat isolation, but also derive pleasure from making a positive impact.
Prioritize physical activity. Physical exercise is a cornerstone to improve mental health among teenagers. Activities like dance, yoga, and hiking offer not only the benefits of physical fitness, but also aid in managing stress and anxiety. High school sports provide an avenue for both exercise and building positive relationships, although alternative options are crucial for teens who find team sports overwhelming. Not that you're being called out again there.
Yeah.
By selecting activities that resonate with their preferences, adolescents can enjoy the dual advantages of enhanced mental and physical well-being.
Disconnect to reconnect. Technology often serves as a crutch for isolated teenagers, enabling them to avoid direct social interactions. To address this, it's vital for parents to regulate screen time. Establishing specific times for disconnecting from the digital world, such as turning off internet access in the evenings, fosters a conductive environment for
Conducive.
Okay, whatever.
We're not trying to conduct electricity to you here if you play too long.
Fosters a conducive environment for face-to-face communication. Promoting device-free family meals also nurtures authentic connections and encourages open conversations.
Forge authentic connections through communication. A cornerstone of mitigating teenage isolation lies in nurturing genuine connections between parents and teenagers. Ongoing, meaningful conversations offer a platform for adolescents to share their thoughts and feelings with their parents. This level of communication plays a pivotal role in reducing feelings of loneliness and enhancing teenagers' sense of support and optimism. Encouraging teenagers to openly discuss their emotions fosters an atmosphere of understanding and empathy within the family.
In an era where technology can inadvertently drive teenagers to isolate themselves, parents have the opportunity to guide their adolescents toward healthier behaviors and relationships. Empower teenagers to overcome isolation, enhance their mental well-being, and forge meaningful connections. By actively implementing these approaches, parents can play an essential role in equipping teenagers with the tools they need to navigate the challenges of their formative years and cultivate a positive outlook on life.
So I wouldn't describe mommy and daddy's policy of screen time as being heavy-handed. We don't really tell you what you can do, when you can do it, anything like that. Do you think our approach is preferable? Or do you think it might be a little too loose and free-handed for your own benefit?
Honestly, I kind of think it's preferable. I don't know if I'm biased on that because I do appreciate my screen time. It's like, it's not that I don't socialize with you guys. I do. You know,
you do, yeah.
We obviously have like our own things that we do together. We have instances where we hang out, and we always have our family meals and so forth. I think that if you were to really restrict me, I think like, I don't know, like I could understand why you would want to do it, but the teenager in me would probably not really appreciate that.
So for the most part, you self-regulate, and for a lot of things, you self-regulate. We're not only about what time you go to bed or when you do your chores or any of that stuff. Is that freedom something that you find helpful to you, or do you think more guidance might be more beneficial to you?
I mean, I appreciate the freedom that I am given. Sure, I don't really take other freedoms that I probably should, like driving, which, like, maybe encouraging me to take on more freedoms would probably be beneficial, because the freedoms that I do take on are beneficial in the sense of, like, I get my chores. Like, the thing is, if you were to, like, regulate my chores, it would be very annoying. Like how you used to be like, oh, laundry misses you. Like, that makes me not want to do laundry. That makes me be like, okay, well, now I'm not doing it.
Right.
So if you were to regulate the freedoms I have now, I probably wouldn't want to take advantage of those freedoms. And instead of regulating other freedoms that I have, or, trying to force me into taking on the other freedoms, I guess just a little more encouragement for other freedoms I don't take yet would be helpful, like encouraging me to go to prom, but not forcing me to go to prom.
Right. Well, and you see, it's just a clear example that old dogs can learn new tricks. I learned that my motivational techniques were less than motivational.
Yep.
So can you think of any instances in your own life or among your friends where avoidance behavior might have contributed to feelings of isolation?
Well, I did mention I felt called out at that moment. So, I mean, yeah, my whole thing of how I deal with hard emotions is I avoid everybody. And, like, it's been like that for years, because if I didn't avoid people, I would lash out at people and I would take out all my emotions on them, which obviously is not fair to other people. So in order to stop that, I would find things that I liked, and I would simply just avoid other people if I was ever feeling angry. And, eventually I got the emotional control to control my emotions until I was able to avoid it, kind of, I guess.
Do you feel that you're isolated?
Kinda, not really, because I feel fine with it. I don't I don't know if it contributes to my low self-esteem or not, but it's like, I have friends. I obviously have friends. I have loving parents. It's like, I do have a social circle, but I don't like engaging with them often. Like, it's just, I feel drained whenever I have to socially interact with some people, and like, obviously there are instances where I don't feel drained and I can feel refreshed, and maybe it's just because I'm not the type of person to really enjoy social interaction, and I'm not the type of person that really is able to get much out of it. Obviously, there's scientific benefits to it that I could point to, but personally, I just never really feel the most comfortable with it. And really, if I was to say that I'm isolated, which, technically I am, I wouldn't really say I am having much of an issue with it. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of fine with it.
Well, and I have to kind of point the finger at myself for some of that influence of the isolation, because I'm very much the same way. I don't have a problem talking to people. I can go out and I can have a conversation with anyone. I can get along with anybody. I just choose not to, because I find it emotionally draining most times. We've talked in the past before about some of the issues that I have with hearing in large crowds. So that's one of the reasons I'm turned off from large crowds. But I'm also the type of person who relishes his personal time, and more importantly, I relish my family time, and it's almost like a greed, like an emotional greed to me. Like, I don't want to share that time with other people. I don't want to share the family with other people, because it's time that's precious to me, and I don't want to sacrifice that. And I think some of that probably has rubbed off on you. Certainly, you don't get it from your mother. Your mother is a social butterfly. She could have a conversation with, a complete stranger at the grocery store. And she does frequently, actually. And my mother used to be the same way. And I do too, because there are some instances where people come up and strike up a conversation with me. We were sitting at breakfast the one day, and the guy was commenting on my shoes because I had a new pair of shoes or something like that. And it's like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go up to someone and do that unless it was, I don't know, something that was alarming or a danger or something like that. So I blame myself for a lot of that isolation that you tend to embrace. And that's really what you do. You self-isolate, but you embrace that isolation. And you'll interact with people, but you heavily regulate your interactions with other people, even people you get along with. Is that because of a lack of tolerance that you have? Or is that something else other than the obvious things that we've talked about that make you want to isolate?
Well, I mean, when it comes to my friends and like, I usually only hang out with like one friend at a time, but there are instances where like, oh, it's like an extended weekend and I hang out with one friend one day and another friend the other day. And I become so socially drained after that second interaction. I don't want to talk to anyone. And I ended up, and mom is usually home at that point, and I just tell her, hey, I don't feel great, please, like, I need to be left alone for, like, an extended period of time. She understands perfectly, and she's like, okay, no problem, and until dinner, I'm alone the rest of the day.
Right. Now, do you think the level of isolation that you impose on yourself, do you think it's a healthy level, or do you think it's something that you probably need to work on, or are you okay with where you're at right now?
I'm honestly okay with where I'm at. I do socialize and I do have, friends more than I've expected, honestly. But yeah, I have friends. I have a social circle. Most of my imposed isolation is kind of just to cope with my own mental issues, and like sometimes I might bring it on my friends, other times I really just use it as a way to make myself feel better. So,
and you know what, I think ultimately it boils down to whether or not you're happy. And if you're happy with the way that you're set up now, then chances are you're probably okay, because I don't think the isolation that you impose on yourself is unhealthy in any way. It's not like you can't walk out of the house. I mean, there are people who literally can't even walk out of their house, and they restrict themselves like prisoners to their homes. You're not like that. And there are situations where if you need to be social, if you need to interact with people, you can do that, and you're capable of doing that. And it's not like you've got any kind of issue with it. It just drains you, and it drains me too. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm not big on it, because I just find it, like today, I had all kinds of meetings today because we were trying to wrap some stuff up, and I was just emotionally drained, mentally drained from having to interact with people like that. Because there's a certain part of you that you can never really relax. I mean, in certain circles you can, but you can never really relax. And part of you is always on guard when you're interacting with other people, because nobody wants to be completely open and vulnerable and stuff like that. So sometimes putting that guard up and being emotionally defensive for your own good can sometimes be very draining as well. So I think that's all we had today. We're going to take a quick break and come back and get your closing thoughts and then finish up with the business of the podcast. We'll be right back.
So I just want to say to everyone out there that teen isolation is definitely something that is incredibly prevalent, but is something that can also have a variety of reasons as to why it occurs. I myself experienced it for many different reasons. I know that social media was one of the biggest ones that we talked about, but clearly that is not really something that works, that why it happens with me. It may be what happens with other people, but it happens for a ton of different reasons, and it can obviously go into both healthy and unhealthy territory. And when it does get into that unhealthy territory, much like everything, it's definitely best to try to break out of the habit.
Excellent. Sage words of advice as always. Before we go, though, I want to take one more chance to invite everyone to subscribe, if you don't already do so, to the podcast. You can find audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Teens, and you can find audio and video versions of this podcast and all the network's podcasts listed as Insights into Things. We're available anywhere you can get a podcast. I would encourage you to email us and give us your feedback. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. We are on X, formerly known as Twitter, at insights_things. You can also get high-res videos of all of our episodes on YouTube at youtube.com/insightsintothings. We do stream 5 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/insightsintothings. And you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast. Or you can find links to all those and more on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com.
And don't forget to check out our other two podcasts, Insights and Entertainment, normally hosted by you and Mommy, and Insights into Tomorrow, normally hosted by you and my brother Sam.
That's it. Another one in the books.
Bye, everyone.
Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Your hosts are Joseph and Madison Whalen, a father and daughter team making their way through the challenges of the teenage years.
Welcome to Insights into Teens. This is episode 187, The Importance of Being Challenged. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my attentive and intelligent co-host, Madison Whalen.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing today, Maddie?
I'm doing, I guess. How about you?
Wow, that's not really encouraging at all, is it?
I don't know.
A statement like that does not inspire confidence.
Well, I don't usually exude confidence anyway, so.
True that. So we had a couple additional unplanned weeks off. We really need to kind of get back into the habit of doing this weekly, assuming our schedule permits. You've had a fairly busy schedule the last couple of weeks, which has kind of kept us out of the studio. And that's because you've been challenged. You've had a lot of challenges you've been facing at school, have you not?
Yeah.
So if nothing else, maybe we have some fresh insights and some fresh input into today's topic.
Yippee.
So we are talking about the importance of being challenged, at least from a teen perspective. Teen Challenge plays a crucial role in the growth and development of adolescents. It taps into their inherent inclination to seek out challenges, which is essential for their maturation process. Engaging with challenges aids in fostering independence and self-discovery, enabling teens to gain insights into their capabilities and identities. In today's episode of Insights into Teens, we're going to take a look at the importance of keeping our teens challenged and how best to accomplish this. But before we do that, I do want to remind all of our listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can find us listed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, TuneIn. Audio versions of this podcast can be found listed as Insights into Teens. Audio and video versions of all the network's podcasts can be found listed as Insights into Things. I would also invite you to give us your feedback, tell us how we're doing, give us show subjects you want us to talk about. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com, or you can get links to all of our social media sites on our website at www.insightsintothings.com. Shall we get into it?
Sure.
Here we go. So, why do teens seek challenge and risk? It seems to be an inherent trait in most teens. While challenges are integral to personal growth, some teenagers might gravitate towards unhealthy risks and choices. Engaging in such activities like drug use or reckless driving can pose life-threatening consequences. Parenting teenagers necessitates guiding them towards safe and constructive avenues for challenging themselves positively. By helping teens navigate towards healthy challenges, parents contribute to their overall well-being and growth.
Adolescence is a period marked by an intense desire for novelty, challenge, and risk-taking behavior, a phenomenon underscored by a comprehensive study conducted by University College London. This stage of life is characterized by the development of the social-emotional system, which drives teenagers to actively seek out stimulation and excitement through a variety of activities.
The study's findings shed light on the motivations behind teenagers' engagement in risky behaviors. Despite having a reasonable understanding of the potential consequences, adolescents are drawn to risky activities because they find them exhilarating and exciting. The allure of these experiences often overshadows their inherent sense of caution. This propensity can be attributed to the incomplete maturation of the teenage brain, particularly in regions responsible for impulse control and decision-making. As a result, teenagers may struggle to effectively weigh the potential risks against the rewards, leading to a higher propensity for engaging in risk-taking behavior.
The research, which encompassed participants ranging from 9 to 35 years of age, consistently demonstrated that teenagers exhibit a distinct inclination towards risk-taking compared to other age groups. Particularly noteworthy is the behavior of 14-year-olds, who displayed the highest levels of risky conduct. This pattern suggests an ongoing and consistent pursuit of challenges and thrills throughout the adolescent years.
The study illuminates the profound impact of developmental changes on adolescents' propensity. I think I put that in there too many times. Like I'm getting a commission for propensity every time I say it. On the adolescent's propensity for risk-taking behaviors. The interplay between the developing social-emotional system and the yet-to-mature brain areas responsible for impulse control underscores the intense desire for challenge and excitement during this transformative phase of life. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for parents, educators, and caregivers as they navigate the complexities of guiding adolescents toward healthy outlets for their innate craving for novelty and adventure. Do you think that you have unsafe risk-taking tendencies?
No, not really.
No, I would agree, but why do you think that is?
I guess maybe it's because I'm a more cautious person, or it could be how I was raised. I like to say that you guys kind of raised me in a not necessarily isolated sort of way, or I'm not like entirely a sheltered way, but kind of in a sheltered way. 'Cause like a lot of the stuff I do, like a lot of the stuff I'm into, I normally learn from you guys, and I very rarely exceed outside of that. Maybe that's because I only ever wanted to listen to whatever you guys said. Maybe it's just like an inherent thing when it comes to me, to where it's like I just kind of listen to you guys, and then it's like, oh cool, I like this, and I kind of want to stick with this. And I don't know, because it's like anytime I hang out with my friends and like they tell me about the different shows and movies they watch, I'm like, I've never seen any of that.
That's interesting. So what are some of the examples of healthy challenges or activities that you believe you could could satisfy your desire? Do you have a desire for excitement and stimulation? Let me ask you that question first. Because if you don't have that desire, there's really no need to satisfy it, right?
Yeah, not really. Anything that I do, am the opposite in that sense. I'm not a very risk-taking. That's a weird way to say that. I'm not a person that really likes to take risks all that often, and if anything, I prefer to stay in like my sheltered bubble half the time. It's like I'll obviously take in new information as it comes and I'll accept it, but at the same time, when it comes to like my own hobbies and interests, like yeah, I get new ones periodically, but then I kind of just harbor over those for like years on end until I eventually find a new one.
So then maybe it might be a better question to ask, what types of activity do you get the excitement and stimulation from if it's not risky type of activity? Is there something out there that you enjoy doing that kind of fills that void?
I mean, there's drawing, playing video games, and watching YouTube videos, typical isolationist introvert mentalities and activities, I suppose.
Okay, I guess that all fits. Considering the incomplete maturation of the teenage brain we discussed, how do you think this knowledge could influence the way parents and guardians approach conversations about risk-taking behavior with teens?
Well, maybe they'd have a better understanding to it. I know we've kind of addressed the idea of like the whole point of us making this podcast was to get rid of the stigma and stereotype of teens just being rebellious because they can and they're just going through a phase, they'll grow out of it. Really, this is just a really big time for us mentally, emotionally, and physically. So like there's obviously major changes that occur, and one of which being intense risk taking, because we do have, like, because of everything going on, we have desires for excitement, desires for change, because we're constantly changing, again, physically, mentally, emotionally. So our interests are going to change, what we like is going to change, how we act is going to change, and really it's just a big time for us, and the stereotype that, we're all just being rebellious and just, going against our parents' wishes. We may be doing that, but it's not without reason.
And that makes sense. And I think all adolescents and teenagers kind of go through that at some point in time. Now, do you have any friends that are in your inner circle who might be more inclined to taking some of these risks that we're talking about to get that jolt of excitement out of things?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm surprised at how some of my friends, I was able to become friends with extroverts rather. Although, I guess we can complement each other in that way.
Let's say opposites attract, right?
I guess so. So, yeah, some of my friends are definitely more extroverted and are more willing to take part in activities, and some of them are even trying to get me to do activities as a result.
Now, do you find that the things that your friends are doing, do you just not like doing those things, or do you consider them inappropriate or dangerous that you don't want to do them?
It's kind of a mix of both, honestly. Some of my friends do stuff that I'm like, okay, I'm definitely never doing that. And then other stuff, it's like, more innocent sort of stuff where I could see myself doing it, but I just don't want to.
So in those situations where you have a friend who's doing something that you fundamentally feel is inappropriate, do you take an active role in trying to discourage them from that or understand why they're doing that?
I definitely try to understand more so, if they are doing something more inappropriate. I don't really stop them because I personally don't think it's really my responsibility to do that. If it gets to a point where it's like, okay, I probably need to let somebody know, I'll probably do that. But for the most part, it's just kind of the typical, some more typical stuff that teenagers just tend to do. And while I personally won't do it myself, I'm not going to stop my friends from doing it because it's their life. They have their own stuff going on. And I more so do my best to understand and possibly push them in a more positive direction.
Have you run into a situation where you've had a friend engage in one of these activities and have negative consequences? And if you have, what was the ultimate outcome, and how did you respond to that type of activity?
Well, there were really no like negative consequences I kind of saw for myself. Any negative consequences they kind of like told me about.
And what about for your friend? Any negative consequences for your friends?
Yeah, there were negative consequences for my friends, and like most of it was like having their phones taken away. And like there were some instances where like it wasn't that justified, other instances where it was probably justified. And honestly, like my friends didn't seem all that worried about it. And like hearing the situation, I was a little more concerned about it, but it sounded like everything was mostly fine going forth. And it did seem like they learned a lesson afterwards, at the very least.
Okay, well, that's good. I think the important thing is assuming that you're that responsible adult who doesn't take a responsible friend, let me say, who doesn't necessarily take those risks. Being that voice of reason, I think, kind of comes hand in hand with that, with your friends, trying to, not necessarily steer them or tell them what to do, but at least advise them on what the better course of action probably would be.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the benefits of Teen Challenge. We'll be right back.
Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Teens. Today we're talking about the importance of being challenged. And now we're going to talk about the benefits of Teen Challenge. The adolescent phase of development is characterized by a myriad of changes and challenges that contribute to the formation of one's identity, cognitive abilities, and social interactions. While the pursuit of challenges is intrinsic to adolescent growth, it is essential to explore the distinction between constructive challenges that adhere to safe boundaries and potential detrimental risks. Recent research, led by neuroscientists from the University of Illinois, delves into the relationship between engaging in healthy challenges, the neurobiological response within the teenage brain, and the potential preventative role against teen depression.
The study utilized advanced neural imaging techniques, particularly MRI technology, to investigate the neural mechanisms underlying adolescents' engagement in challenges and the impact on their mental well-being. The research team closely examined brain activity patterns in response to rewarding tasks, including scenarios where participants donated money to their family members and made decisions involving financial gains through risk-taking. Prior to the study's commencement, participant levels of depressive symptoms were evaluated, forming a baseline against which the subsequent challenges would be measured over a year.
The study's findings brought to light several intriguing insights into the interplay of challenges, brain responses, and depression. During the execution of challenging tasks, adolescents displayed heightened neural activity in brain regions associated with reward processing. This phenomenon suggests that engaging in challenges triggers a rewarding neural response, potentially reinforcing the desire for further engagement in such activities.
A particularly noteworthy discovery emerged in relation to the motivation underlying risk-taking behaviors. Counterintuitively, adolescents who took calculated risks for the purpose of benefiting their family members demonstrated a reduced likelihood of developing depression over the course of a year. This observation unveils a nuanced perspective on the relationship between risk-taking and mental health outcomes. It underscores that the nature of the challenge and the underlying motivation significantly impact the consequences on emotional well-being.
The research marks a significant step toward comprehending the intricate relationship between challenges, brain responses, and mental health outcomes among adolescents. It highlights the potential of engaging in healthy challenges and a means of bolstering emotional, mental, and social development. The revelation that calculated risk-taking motivated by pro-social intentions can act as a preventative factor against depression offers a fresh perspective on the complexities of risk behaviors.
So what do you think about the idea that facing challenges makes teenagers' brains feel rewarded? Do you feel rewarded when you face a challenge and you overcome that challenge?
Not usually, at least I don't have any that really come to mind for the most part.
So let me throw out a scenario here. So you've got a test coming up, okay? Let's say, for the purpose of this argument, it's a history test, which I know you love history. And you spend 2 or 3 days studying for that test. And then you go and take that test, and you don't know if you don't get your grade back immediately. But you feel as though the questions that were on the test, you were familiar with the concepts and the answers. And you kind of breeze through that test. After the test, but before you get the results, do you feel any kind of level of confidence? Do you feel as though you met that challenge face on and accomplished something after all that studying and hard work?
No, not really. I don't really have any confidence. At least when it comes to history, I don't really have that confidence. And honestly, I don't know. Maybe history is just a bad example, but no, not really.
What about after you get the results back and you realize that you scored an A, you scored a high grade on that test? How do you feel at that point? Do you feel like you accomplished something? Do you feel getting that grade was a reward? A rightful reward for the amount of effort that you put in?
I mean, I guess. I mean, I'll be shocked if I get an A, but I don't know. I mean, I don't really know if I'm feeling the exact same amount of accomplishment that you kind of are expecting me of. If you want a better example that where I do feel accomplished, it's usually when I have to do like a new style of art. Typically, it's like I don't always have the confidence that I'm like, okay, I'm going to be trying something new with my art. I don't know if it's going to look good. And then I try it and then I'm like, oh, that actually looks really good. I'm surprised that I was able to do it and I feel good about it.
That's interesting that you use that as an example because doing art is one of your feel-good therapy type things. So you get a reward when you're doing something that you enjoy. Do you not get rewards when you face challenges that you don't enjoy? Is that kind of where we're at?
Yeah, like even if I do good on a history test, it's like, okay, didn't expect that to happen. Well, better just maybe it's just because I can't really expect to like hold on to the victories because it's like, oh, I did good on that. Well, I have to get ready for the next one then.
Well, and it's funny, there's in development, software development, there is a methodology called Agile where you do a series of sprints and each sprint has a certain amount of work that you do and there's an output to it. There's an older philosophy in development that's called waterfall. And waterfall is a much longer process. It's all project based. And at the end, you finish a project and then you move on to something new. And the Agile, a lot of the industry focuses on Agile now because it tends to be more efficient especially with changes in requirements and stuff. But I never found the agile method particularly rewarding for exactly that reason. Okay, let's get in here. Let's work. Okay, we finished this sprint. We got this done. We don't have time to enjoy it because we have to go on to the next sprint. Sprint. Get to the end. Move on to the next one. There was never, like in Waterfall, there was always a defined end. There was a transition period, and then there was a start of the next project. And during that period, there was a sense of accomplishment. With school, for you, you've got 4 marking periods, right? So you're doing that sprint from test to test, quiz to quiz, week to week, and you eventually get to the end of the marking period. You test out of the marking period, and you got to turn around and do it all over again. Is that monotonous cycle that you're kind of referring to?
Pretty much, and I honestly feel like it's with honestly any sort of schoolwork. Like, even with like my slower classes, it's like I took this test, I got my grade for it, back to like worrying about the newer subjects, because immediately after the test you have to get into another subject, and then you test on that subject, and then you get into another subject. And that's also kind of how I forget a lot of this stuff from subject to subject, because it's like, okay, I feel somewhat okay, I did a good grade on that one. Let me forget all that information so I can bring in new information and just repeat the cycle over and over again.
Well, and I think, in the spirit of how it's meant, the idea isn't to forget what you did. The idea is to build upon that and acquire more knowledge on top of the stuff that you've learned already. That's the intent.
Honestly, the way that it goes for me, it's kind of just like, okay, you had all this time to study for this big test, and now you have to learn new information, and then you gradually just forget all the other stuff that you just learned because you have to make room in your mind for all this new information because you just crammed so much of it into your brain for the test. You got to get rid of all that stuff so that you can get ready for the new test.
That's probably not the best approach to learning in school at this point.
Unfortunately, that's how I've been doing it, so.
Okay, well, I mean, the problem you run into is at the end of the year, you need to know all the stuff, or at least a portion of all of it, because you're going to have, well, you probably won't have finals because your grade average, but most kids will have final exams, and final exams are going to touch on everything you got all year long. So forgetting about it probably isn't the best philosophy. And the human brain doesn't work like that. You don't have, it's not like a hard drive where you have a finite capacity. The human brain is,
I mean, like, it's
great, capable of a lot more than that.
Like, sure, I'll probably, like, still remember aspects of it, but it's like, it's not in the front load of my mind, so it's not like I'll remember everything.
Okay, well, I can understand that. I think part of the problem with that approach is that challenges are a part of life. It's not just a school thing. The phase of adolescence frequently entails encouraging unanticipated obstacles. I'm sorry. Let me try that again, and this time I'll read the words that are actually written. The phase of adolescence frequently entails encountering unanticipated obstacles and difficulties that adolescents themselves did not deliberately choose. Despite their initial unfavorable appearance, these circumstances possess the potential to significantly foster personal growth and development. This viewpoint is underscored by the outlooks of a mentor and therapeutic facilitator, who accentuates the influence of life's trials and tests on shaping individuals.
These challenges, although demanding, are asserted to play a pivotal role in nurturing an individual's character and abilities. Overcoming these challenges emerges as a pathway to unveiling concealed inner strength, latent skills, and inventive solutions that might otherwise remain undiscovered. The process of grappling with adversity leads adolescents to a pivotal realization. They inherently possess the capability to directly confront issues and carve out their own trajectories, detaching from external influences.
It is also proposed that successfully addressing and prevailing over hardships holds the potential to unlock dormant qualities within teenagers. These attributes encompass determination, creativity, and resilience. As adolescents navigate through the terrain of challenges, they gain a distinctive opportunity for profound self-discovery and self-awareness. This advancement prompts introspection, enabling them to forge deeper links with their identities and capabilities.
Essentially, the challenges that adolescents encounter act as a unique platform for delving into their strengths and capacities. Through their triumphs over...
Why don't you put all that together and make one word out of it?
Sorry, brain not working right now. Through their triumphs over these obstacles, they assemble a collection of invaluable skills that contribute to their empowerment. This accumulation of skills, coupled with the experience of surmounting difficulties, plays a pivotal role in cultivating a sense of self-value. This transformative expedition not only facilitates adolescents in acknowledging their inherent potential, but also bolsters their trust in their aptitude to navigate impending challenges.
The intricate interaction between unforeseen challenges and personal growth constitutes a central facet of the adolescent journey. Guided by the insights of experts, it becomes evident that surmounting obstacles functions as a conduit for self-discovery, self-enhancement, and the fostering of resilience. Ultimately, these transformative progression shapes not only... I'm not reading where the commas are. Ultimately, this transformative progression shapes not only adolescents' abilities, but also their self-perceptions, contributing to an elevated sense of identity and a fortified outlook on life. So it's worth noting, we're talking about some of the challenges that you face at school right now. As a manager of employees myself, and as someone who has higher ups, challenges themselves in a professional environment aren't just unavoidable, they're a requirement. I have to give my guys challenges. And I work with highly technical, very intelligent, very methodical people. They're all technicians or developers or something along those lines. So keeping them challenged keeps them interested in the work. If I can't provide a challenge to them, they're not advancing their skills. And in the world of IT, you're constantly learning. There's no, I've learned this and I'm done and I can just sit back and enjoy what I've learned. Technology is constantly changing. So you have to keep people interested in that. To do that, you keep them challenged. To keep them challenged, they keep learning. So not only does it keep them learning, it keeps their skills honed and focused. It teaches them how to think differently, how to troubleshoot things differently, and it keeps them interested in the work. And if I can't, this is a struggle I have with my developers. If I can't keep my developers interested in the work that they're doing, I'm not going to be able to keep them as employees. They're going to go somewhere else and find something that's challenging. The vast majority of people in the professional world are motivated by challenges. It keeps them going. It keeps them learning. It keeps them growing and becoming better people, better workers, better at their job. So challenges are a very welcome thing in the professional world. Nobody wants to be bored at work because it takes an 8-hour day and turns it into a 16-hour day if you're bored at work. If we're busy, if we're challenged, we're learning, we're expanding, we're better. I'm a firm believer that the people that work for me, when they go on to work somewhere else, they should leave under my employment or my employer's employment a better person than when they came in. And the only way to get that is through challenges. Every challenge is a learning opportunity. That's how I look at it, and that's the philosophy that I preach to my people. How do you think encountering unexpected challenges can help teenagers grow, develop, and develop according to viewpoints of mentors and therapeutic facilitators? Do you think that that's a viable approach to growing yourself as an individual?
I mean, of course, because, obviously, if you do the same thing over and over again, you're never really going to change because you're not challenged and you kind of just stay the same if, like, that's how your life is. If you're not given new, like, opportunities to challenge, to be challenged, then you're really not going to improve all that much. So I definitely understand why challenging yourself is important.
Well, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'll go back to the professional environment thing, and I have a tendency, if I'm not being challenged by my higher ups to excel at what I do, I'll go out and find my own challenges. And, I'll identify areas that we have a need, or there's a shortcoming, or something can be improved. And I'll take on that challenge so that I can make a difference and have that personal growth myself. And hobbies are like that. When we do hobbies, my hobbies tend to revolve mostly around technology and stuff. But it's a challenge for me to take on these hobbies and learn new things. I've been embarking on a pretty aggressive learning schedule with some of this online learning material that I have from work. And it's not just stuff that's related to work. I'm not just looking at IT stuff or computer stuff. I'm looking at management challenges. I'm looking at personnel and human resources. I'm looking at things that make me a more well-rounded person. And every time I go through one of these courses or overcome one of the challenges that they throw at me, that's an extra skill set. That's an extra arrow in my quiver that I can use later on in life and say, hey, you know what? I can speak to that. I'm an authority on that. And it makes me a better person. If I didn't have those challenges, I'd be bored out of my mind at work. Do you get bored at school if you're not challenged?
I mean, I guess, but in some way, I'm always able to really keep myself occupied. There are definitely times where, I'm bored because I don't really have anything to do, but then I kind of have assignments that I have to do, and then the rest of the time, I'm not really that bored because I have to, if I'm not doing an assignment in one class, I'm doing an assignment for another class.
Now, do you feel that the assignments themselves are self-elevating, where you going through these, you're actually getting something out of it? Or is it just make busy work for you? Or you just, I'm cranking out this poster project or this writing project because I have to, and you don't feel like there's any benefit that you're getting from it?
It's mostly that, but sometimes I feel like I get some stuff out of it. But a lot of the time, it kind of just feels like busy work to the point where it's oh, it's probably just supposed to teach me time management in the sense of oh, you have to get this done in such and such amount of time. The content itself really isn't all that engaging. It's just I mean, sure, I'm gaining time management from it, but really when I'm actually doing it, it's just okay, I have free time to do it now. I'll just do it now. I'm not really gaining much from the actual assignment. I'm just going to finish it because I know I have to finish it.
See, and that's something that I blame on the teachers in the schools, because I'm the type of person that when I ask an employee to do something, whether it's a highly technical thing or, hey, the room is messy, let's clean it up and get rid of these empty boxes, it's not meant to be a make busy type thing. And I don't just expect my employees to just do what I tell them because I told them. It's important that they understand why we're doing it. The teacher should articulate, okay, today you're doing a poster project and you're going to make a movie poster of the 1930s on the subject that we're doing now. And this is why we're going to do it. It's going to help to reinforce the facts that we have that you're going to be tested on later. It's going to help you learn in different ways, because instead of it just being text-based, you're going to have some visual, from your own experience, people retain information differently when they digest it differently.
Yep.
Some people can retain it better if they read aloud. Some people can read into a recorder and listen back, and they hear it back and they retain it better. Some people visually can do it by writing it down. So everybody learns differently. And part of the reason that you do these projects is to figure out how you learn. You know, when we study for your history stuff. We've probably done 5 or 6 different study techniques to see which one sticks best with you. Some work better than others, and we try to stay with the ones that work the best. But that's what the projects are designed to do. It's to get you to learn in a different way, to retain things in a different way, or figure out how to learn things in a different way. You know, when I throw a problem at my guys, I did it today. We had a development meeting today. And I threw a couple of things out there to my guys, not because I expected them to solve it, but because I want them to start thinking about it. You know, if this scenario happens, what are the solutions? How can we fix it? What are the best ways to fix it? Well, there's 3 different ways that we can fix this problem. Okay, well, what's the best way? What's the way that's going to be the most efficient? What's the way that's going to be the most impactful? And what's going to be the lowest cost? So there's all different factors that you have to look at. And I think part of the thing that you might be missing when you get these assignments is that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to try these different techniques, see what sticks, keep you interested, keep you engaged. Some kids like art projects, so we got to throw some art in with our history stuff so that we can keep those art kids, those creative minds engaged. Some of these kids are the type that, you know, they can watch videos and they'll learn from that. So we're going to watch this video today, and, you know, that's not going to work for everybody, but it's going to work for some of the kids. So as much as it may seem like make busy work, it's really trying to cater to everyone out there and figure out how everybody learns best. And when you've got a class full of 30 kids or something like that, you can't have 30 different ways to teach. So you kind of have to pick and choose some of the ones, the more mainstream ones that'll help the kids out. I think that's probably what you're running into. And for you, because you're like my developers, if the teachers can't keep you engaged, you get bored and you dislike it. My developers are just like that. And it sounds like some of your teachers are not keeping you engaged. And the intelligent, creative kids are the ones that are really hard to keep engaged, because you're the ones that, you know, you can figure things out very quickly. You know, I hand you a Rubik's Cube and you solve it in 5 minutes, you're bored with it at that point. What am I going to do? Well, then I start taking the colored stickers off of it, and I start putting different colored stickers on there and seeing how you figure that one out. That's how you would do something like that. You know, let you think outside the box, because all the techniques that we use to think inside the box, you've already figured out. So you're going to get bored with it. And that's challenging for teachers, because most teachers have to teach from a curriculum that they don't define themselves. And they're kind of bound by that. But the creative ones, your chemistry teacher, I think, is one of the creative ones, where he can react on the fly to how the kids are learning. And he can be a little more adaptive. Not everybody's a good teacher like that.
Yep.
So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. We're going to take our second break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the common types of unhealthy teen challenges. We'll be right back.
Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Teens. Today we're talking about the importance of being challenged. And now we're going to talk about common types of unhealthy teen challenges. While the pursuit of challenges is a natural aspect of development, the absence of constructive challenges can lead to the adoption of risky actions with potentially harmful consequences. Here are 5 primary categories of these risky actions, shedding light on the importance of fostering healthy challenges for adolescents' well-being.
The first we're going to talk about is violence or injury. The first category of risky actions pertains to behaviors that may lead to violence or injury, not industry. This encompasses actions such as physical altercations, bullying, weapon possession, self-harm, and the contemplation or attempt of suicide. Adolescents who lack appropriate channels for challenge and self-expression may resort to these behaviors as a misguided way of asserting control, seeking attention, or coping with emotional distress.
The second is unsafe sexual behavior. The second category involves unsafe sexual behaviors, which encompasses actions such as engaging in sexual activity at an early age, foregoing protection during intercourse, and neglecting to undergo testing for sexually transmitted diseases. Additionally, the consumption of alcohol or drugs before engaging in sexual activity heightens the risk associated with these behaviors. Unhealthy challenges in this context can stem from societal pressures, lack of comprehensive sex education, and limited awareness to potential consequences.
Alcohol, drugs, and tobacco use are another. Third category encompasses a range of behaviors from alcohol consumption in any quantity to binge drinking, prescription or illegal drug use, as well as smoking cigarettes or using chewing tobacco. Adolescents may gravitate toward these substances as a result of peer influence, curiosity, or as a means of escape from stressors. The absence of meaningful challenges may contribute to the allure of such behaviors as a form of experimentation.
The fourth category pertains to unsafe driving or riding behaviors. This encompasses actions like texting while driving, driving under the influence of substances, failing to wear seatbelts, or being in a vehicle with an impaired driver. Similarly, riding a bike under the influence or without proper safety gear falls within this category. The lack of constructive challenges can prompt adolescents to engage in these hazardous actions as a way of seeking excitement or asserting independence.
The final category concerns poor self-care behaviors. This involves inadequate attention to physical and mental well-being, including unhealthy eating habits, insufficient sleep, sedentary lifestyles, and excessive screen time on social media and electronic devices. The absence of positive challenges and productive outlets may lead adolescents to neglect self-care, resulting in various health and emotional issues.
The innate drive of adolescents to seek challenges and take risks is a fundamental aspect of their developmental journey. However, when constructive challenges are lacking, adolescents may resort to unhealthy behaviors. Recognizing the correlation between the absence of healthy challenges and the adoption of risky actions is crucial in shaping interventions and programs that foster a balanced and constructive adolescent experience. By providing opportunities for positive challenges, society can contribute to the cultivation of responsible decision-making and the overall well-being of teenagers.
So, what role do you think the absence of meaningful challenges plays in teenagers' decisions to experiment with substances like alcohol and tobacco?
Well, we actually recently did some drug projects in health when it came to, like, you pick a substance, you research it, and you talk about the dangers and why you shouldn't be using it and so forth. And one of the categories we could talk about, or topics related to our drug, is who uses it and why. And adolescents, like, in a lot of the substances, like adolescents would use them, and they were like one of the target demographics for it. And I feel like because they would have like either they just wouldn't have healthy or had the absence of healthy challenges, it would pretty much like they would end up resorting to such substances as either a means of escape, as a way of like just feeling like they were like in forms of like empowerment, because again, like drugs kind of affect you mentally and physically, and a lot of teens would probably use that in the sense of like, oh, I don't feel great right now, maybe I'll take this and it'll make me feel better, or it'll alter their perception of reality to make it seem better than it actually is.
That's a very good point. Very well thought out. So there are healthy challenges for teens as well. The journey of adolescence is marked by a crucial need for healthy challenges to foster growth, with parents holding a pivotal role in guiding their teenagers towards constructive avenues that expand their horizons. A range of options exist for parents to facilitate these beneficial challenges.
One is outdoor adventure therapy, encompassing activities such as rock climbing, kayaking, and ropes courses. These experiences are designed to cultivate problem-solving skills and self-reliance, leading to enhanced self-esteem and stronger interpersonal connections.
Engagement in sports. The realm of sports provides teenagers with an environment to test their physical and mental limits. Within a supportive framework, they can explore their capabilities and extend them to new boundaries.
Engaging in creative endeavors like art, theater, and stand-up comedy presents teenagers with meaningful challenges. These challenges can gain prominence when they present their creative work to an audience, encouraging confidence and personal growth.
Activities such as indoor rock climbing, roller coaster rides, and visits to theme parks offer teenagers a controlled outlet for their innate desire for excitement and thrill-seeking.
Venturing into uncharted territories by learning new skills through lessons or partaking in family activities like river rafting opens avenues for teens to challenge themselves while enjoying familial support.
While encouraging healthy eating habits is beneficial, parents must tread carefully to prevent it from evolving into disordered eating behaviors, especially among those susceptible to eating disorders.
Engaging in roles like camp counselors, club memberships, or after-school classics, not classics.
The old
sorry.
after-school classics, Tom and Jerry, you know.
Engaging in roles like camp counselors, club memberships, or after-school classes exposes teenagers to unfamiliar environments, encouraging them to transcend their comfort zones.
And finally, we have embarking on travel adventures, which you'll be going on in the not-too-distant future. The prospect of studying abroad or participating in group trips introduces teens to novel challenges and risks, enriching their growth through diverse experiences.
Teenagers are inherently inclined to seek challenges that stretch their boundaries and offer excitement. Parental guidance is paramount in channeling this natural inclination toward healthy challenges that facilitate growth while mitigating potential risks. By providing platforms for outdoor exploit, participation in sport, creative expression, controlled excitement, skill acquisition, balanced nutrition, social engagement, and exploration through travel, parents can empower their teenagers to embark on a journey of personal development and self-empowerment.
So how can parents support their teenagers in exploring new activities and venturing into unfamiliar territories while ensuring a balance between challenging experiences and safety?
Well, I think the idea is one of the main ones is finding a good balance between how involved the parent is, because you don't want to like completely hover over your kid the entire time and like, dictate what exactly they're going to be challenged with, or like tell them how to face the challenges on their own, or just give them too many pointers and so forth. But you also don't want to completely throw them into a challenging situation without any sort of guidance, because that's a good way for them to engage in more dangerous activities as a result without, the proper guidance and way to at least have a little bit of a steering toward the right path.
Now, do you think that Mommy and I provide these challenges, these constructive challenges, to you in an appropriate manner and sufficient volume to keep you challenged? Do we not challenge you enough? Are we challenging you too much? What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like you guys, it's not an often sort of thing, but, you guys definitely try to provide challenges for me. I either challenge myself more than you guys do, or I refuse to challenge myself. It's an interesting streak. Occasionally you guys will give me certain challenges to overcome, and most of the time I'm fine with that. Most of my challenges and not challenging myself can usually come from myself.
See, and in my experience, there's really two types of challenges that you tend to face. Either it's a creative, fun, artistic, expressive type of challenge, like making a picture for a special occasion or something like that, and you excel at those. Then there's the uncomfortable challenges where we try to kind of get you to step outside your boundaries, your comfort zones a little bit, and expand your boundaries. And those, like driving, we try to make you drive as often as we can because I think it's an important learned skill that you should have. And there's a lot more resistance from you for these things. Do you agree with that? Do you think that there's challenges that you are always going to be resistant to unless it's kind of forced down your throat? And do you think there's certain challenges that if you enjoy them, they're not really challenges? That's kind of the concern that I have with the ones that you do enjoy doing. I don't think they're challenges to you at that point.
I mean, that is kind of how it goes, I guess. I really have nothing much to say on that. Yes, I am, like I kind of mentioned before, I'm not really one that likes being challenged. In certain instances, I feel fine being challenged. In others, it's not fun and I don't like it.
Right. Well, and that's for Mommy and I, the challenge to us, not to keep using the word challenge, but I will. It's finding out, one, how to challenge you in a way that you'll be accepting of it. And two, finding a challenge for you that you can get something out of. Like if I ask you to draw me a picture and you do it in your regular style, you're not getting anything out of that. But if I come to you and I say, I need you to draw me a picture in this style, and it's a style you've never done before, you're very receptive to that. You'll accept a challenge that pushes your artistic boundaries. But if it's your comfort boundaries, you tend not to want to engage in those challenges. And I think maybe Mommy and I need to challenge those comfort boundaries, but in a less aggressive way, and maybe introduce you to expanding those boundaries in a more gradual way. Do you think something like that would be more effective?
I mean, maybe. I don't really have...
You don't seem very enthusiastic.
I'm not really enthusiastic. I appreciate my comfort zone. Thank you very much. I understand that if you don't challenge me, then I'll probably just be forced into it, and then I won't have any way of how to manage it. But even then, it's like I have my comfort zone right now, and I still don't want to leave it.
Well, and nobody wants to leave their comfort zone. That's why it's a comfort zone. But our comfort zones tend to silo us. They pigeonhole us. We can't really grow when we're always staying in our comfort zone. And I don't want to rip you out of that comfort zone and throw you into an uncomfortable situation. What I'd much rather do is kind of slowly and gradually increase the discomfort in your comfort zone so you can learn to expand a little bit more. And I think we may have not have found that scenario just yet. I think that's probably where we're working right now. But, you certainly do accept the challenges that we send to you. I don't think there's much of a problem there. That's about all we have. We're going to take a quick break, come back, and we'll get your closing thoughts and finish up the podcast. We'll be right back.
All right, so to everyone out there, I just wanted to mention that challenges are a part of life and it's not really something we can entirely avoid. There can be very positive challenges that can help us grow as people and expand our horizons. But then if we don't have those positive challenges, we can usually take up more negative challenges and risks that can harm us more than they can help us. So much like everything with life, you kind of have to find a good balance between both of them, and hopefully you'll be able to grow as a person as you discover it.
All right. Sage advice, as always. I think we're going to skip the plugs to the end here, and we're getting kind of redundant with those, and say that's it. Another one in the books.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Your hosts are Joseph and Madison Whalen, a father and daughter team making their way through the challenges of the teenage years.
Welcome to Insights into Teens. This is episode 180, Perspectives on Parenting, Top Challenges of Parenting. That's not at all
Not it, actually. It's Perspectives on Parenting, Getting Them Ready.
Okay, whatever.
Hopefully you got the same script as me.
I have the questions, all right? This is just from a couple of however long ago it was.
All right, well, it'll be interesting if nothing else.
Anyway, I'm your host, Madison Whalen, giving a great intro so far, and my co-host today, Joseph Whalen.
Hi.
This is why I don't do this stuff anymore.
A little out of practice. You only do this every 10 episodes.
And also our special guest for today, Michelle Whalen from Insights and Entertainment.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing?
Sound like special guest. It's Mom. We just had dinner. It wasn't like, I haven't seen you in a while or anything.
That's true.
Been a while since we've been on the air, though.
Well, yes, that is true.
All right, so how's everybody doing?
Fantastic.
Wonderful. And you?
Good. Not used to this, but we're working on it.
And another year older.
Yeah,
look at that.
ain't that nifty, am I right?
Pretty soon we're not going to be able to do Insights into Teens anymore.
I still got a couple of years, technically.
Well, that's good. So the show will continue for a little while.
Till I'm 20, technically. I'm still a teenager at 19, technically. So
that's true.
True.
And then we'll have to go out and dig up another teenager that can be on the show. Or we'll be lying. Well, technically, you started the show at 12, so.
Right.
Yeah, technically we were lying from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's all a lie.
Bunch of liars.
Anyway, so today we're going to be doing another one of our perspectives on parenting. This is the third episode of this we've done. It's kind of our big episode, 10 episode margin topper off, or segue into the next era of what our Insights into Teens podcasts are going to be about.
Kind of like a season arc, you know?
Pretty much, yeah. And like you said earlier, today we're going to be talking about a section from that we've been pulling from so far for the other episodes, which is getting them ready. So we're going to be going through various different questions relating to things of teaching kids to socialize, instilling good behavior in them, and looking after their educational needs. Since I do not have the right thing up, I do not have a good summary, so that is my best interpretation of what we've got so far.
That's good enough.
All right. But before we get started on the podcast, I'd like to invite the listening and viewing audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio versions listed under Insights into Teens. You can also find video and audio versions listed under Insights into Things. I'd also like to invite you to give us your feedback on what we're talking about or give us your suggestions for show topics. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com, and links to all these and more are on our website at www.insightsintothings.com. Are we ready?
We are ready.
Alrighty. So
Sorry, wrong button.
Oh, we're just full of mistakes.
I was almost ready.
We're just full of mistakes today, aren't we?
We're a little out of practice.
A little out of practice. It's been a while. But starting us off, I'm going to be asking both of you questions about teaching kids how to socialize. So I'm going to ask this to you, Father.
Okay.
So, is it the job of a parent to teach their kids how to socialize?
I don't know if it's the job of the parent. I think kids, for the most part, will socialize where they're comfortable. I think parents have the responsibility of kind of setting the example and teaching kids probably the cautious way to socialize, you know, the dangers of it, how to do it right, and encouraging. I think that's probably a better term, is it's a parent's job to encourage you to socialize, but within your comfort zone, I think.
All right, that's fair. Mommy, you want to add anything on that?
No, I would probably agree for the most part with that. I think, you know, nowadays you have a lot of kids that do homeschooling, so there's not as much socializing for some people, but a lot of the homeschoolers actually have their own school system in some respects so that they can have the kids socialize. So back in the day, whenever you heard that somebody, you know, was homeschooled, it kind of meant that they didn't know how to act in public or didn't know how to act with other people because they were never around other people, where now homeschooled kids actually probably get more interaction because not only are they're in a different type of environment, so they are being able to socialize more. So I think it is important to, for the parents to make sure that their child is in some sort of environment to be able to socialize.
All right, fair enough. I'll lead the next question to you, Mommy. Do or do you not feel kids knowing how to socialize is important, and why or why not?
Oh, absolutely. It's very important because it's how you function, day to day in the world. Fortunately, nowadays, so much can kind of be done in isolation. Unfortunately, we found that out during the pandemic, that people didn't need to necessarily go to work. Now having all of the technology that you have where you could video call with somebody, FaceTime or Zoom or whatever, you don't need to necessarily physically socialize, but you still have some sort of skill set that you need to be able to communicate and socialize even virtually. So I think it's just important in general to be able to, not have anxiety when you want to go get something to eat and you need to go order from a restaurant or pick something up at the store. There's all that social interaction, but there are times, again, because of the pandemic and everything, there's so much that became virtual or curbside where you don't have to, where there are people that have the anxiety of having the social interaction where it kind of helped them to still be kind of part of things without having it. But I think it's a skill set that everybody, should have.
Okay, do not at all feel called out by that. Anyway, I'll turn the next question over to you, Father. Can kids gain enough social skills on their own through things like school and interacting with others with little parental influence?
If I'm going back to when I was a kid, I would say absolutely. My parents had very little influence on my social upbringing, I'd say. We, did it all of ourselves. My parents weren't the helicopter parents. They weren't hovering over me. They weren't part of the PTA. They weren't the soccer moms. None of that stuff existed at the time. So as a kid, we did everything ourselves from a social standpoint. We got home from school. If you had homework, you finished your homework, and then you were out playing until it was dark and you had to come in at that point in time. You did it through school because you made friends with everyone at school. And there was a very different environment at the time. Unfortunately, nowadays, there are too many things out there now that are a danger to kids. So parents tend to be overly protective these days. And as a result, you get the creation of play dates. We didn't have play dates as a kid. If I wanted to hang out with my friends, I'd get on the phone, call and see if they were there. I'd go over to their house. The neighborhood that I lived in, it was a not a gated community, but it was a closed community in that it wasn't on any major roads. So the whole community itself was about 1 square mile. So if I wanted to hang out with my friends, I'd either go to my best friend who was on the next street over, or I'd walk across town for 5 minutes to go to see the kids that were over there. So there was nothing that kept you in the house. We didn't have technology. We weren't glued to our phones or anything like that. So you had to go out and play with people and make friends because there was no substitute. You had 3 channels on showing my age here, but you had 3 channels on TV unless you were rich enough to have cable, and then you had like 15 channels. So there wasn't anything at home to do. You didn't have video games. You didn't have computers when I was a kid. You had toys and you played with your friends with toys, or you'd go out and play sports or something like that. So my parents had almost nothing to do with my socializing. So in fact, if it was up to my mom, I probably wouldn't have had any friends because she didn't let anybody over the house. She hated having people over the house because she didn't want people making a mess at the house. So today it's very different though. And I think today there are so many things at home that keep kids from being social. Ironically, social media is one of them. People think social media is a social activity, and it's not. It's the exact opposite. So as a result, parents today are organizing kids in, play groups or whatever to try and get them to socialize more, because we have to get you ready to interact with society as an adult. And then if you're not going to do it yourself, then the parents have to at least put some effort into that.
That's fair enough. The next question goes to you, Mommy. What methods do you feel are best in getting kids to socialize?
Well, I think it helps if there's some sort of common interest. So, for kids to either join a sport or do dance or some sort of club, some sort of activity, I think that always helps because then you have that common bond versus, hey, I'm into video games and I'm into baseball, but I don't like video games and I don't like baseball. You might have a conflict, and then it might make you actually not even want to socialize. So I think that's probably a good start. Besides school, I think going to school or being, with kids your own age is a great way to kind of start the socializing. And then if you see that there's some sort of, issue where, maybe they're not socializing enough, maybe they're not getting along with people, maybe trying to find a group where, they would kind of feel that they belong.
That makes sense. Do you want to weigh in on this, Daddy?
No, I think Mommy covered that topic pretty well.
Alrighty. Next question goes to you then. Should certain social activities be limited to different age groups? If so, which ones?
None come to mind immediately, but I'm sure there are certain ones that are age appropriate. Certain things require certain resources. If you want to go to the mall's only going to allow a certain age group to be there unsupervised. If you want to go to the movies, you need transportation, you need money. So there's logistics around that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to hang out with your friends, no, that shouldn't be any age group. You're going to watch TV or play video games or play board games. So anything that's there probably would be age specific to the actual activity itself, and it would be less dependent on the socializing aspect of it than it would be what the actual activity, I think, would be.
That makes sense. Anything to say on that?
No, I think that was okay.
All right. Mommy, the next question is for you.
Okay.
What kind of impact do you feel that you've had on my social life?
I don't know. I hope a positive one. While you weren't in any sort of clubs or anything up until high school, you did do the before and after care, which that was kind of, not that it was necessarily a club, it was something that was needed because of, going and working, in the office and the hours of school and things like that. But that kind of became a way for you to socialize with a vast array of kids that weren't necessarily all within your age group. When you started, you were one of the younger kids, and then you became, the older kids. So you got to kind of see the transition of being the kid that, oh, I don't have that much homework, I want to go play, to being the older kid that had more homework, and you got annoyed at the younger kids who just wanted to play because you still had homework that you needed to do. But I think you also kind of found your niche of, okay, I kind of like being the older kid and hanging with the younger kids and kind of being the mom of the group in a way. I think that kind of became your niche in a lot of cases, because even with, the kids in the neighborhood, you're one of the older ones when you would get together and do stuff, and you kind of organize, and you're kind of like the kid wrangler. Come on, let's do this. Let's go here. Let's do that. Or, even when you were in marching band, if somebody needed a Band-Aid, wait, I got one. Oh, you need a fan? You're hot? Yeah, here's that. Oh, you were the one that, was taking care of everybody. So I think that kind of helped to put you in that. I know I kind of look back and I kind of have regrets that we didn't get you more involved with things when you were younger. And unfortunately, it was time constraints where, there were activities that started at, 4:00 in the afternoon, but because of our working schedules, we couldn't do that. So you weren't able to do dance or brownies or Girl Scouts or things like that.
I like brownies.
Who doesn't? So I kind of regret that, and I wonder how things would have changed if you had been able to do those things. Would you be, different socially than you are now?
That's fair.
But, I don't think you have any regrets for it. I don't think you ever go, I really wish.
Yeah, not really, no.
You're kind of, happy, like, being where you are. And again, I think part of it is also because we went through COVID, and that was when you were in middle school. So that was another, like, informative year time frame that kind of got compressed, where that should have been more getting out, hanging out with friends, doing things, but nobody was doing any of that. But you have this nice little core group, of friends, which is important, I think, that everybody have that. So you might not always be able to get together with everybody, but it's like, all right, well, do you want to do something? All right, we'll do something this week, and it's maybe not everybody all at once, but okay, so this day you hang out with this person, and this day you get to hang out with that one. And, so I feel, that it kind of, all right, we did a good job. She's not the person that's, sitting at home, not talking to anybody, not communicating with anybody, not hanging out with anybody. So, so I think we did good so far.
Fair enough.
Just need to learn how to, order food on your own. That's all.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. All right, so the next question is going to go out to you. So you mentioned before how a parent can kind of influence a kid in the terms of them being social. So do you believe that a parent could cause a child to be less social?
Yes. There are certainly a number of different ways that a parent can have that impact on a child. And sometimes it's not a negative impact. Sometimes if you're someone who is more interested in going out and socializing than you are in doing the things that you need to be responsible about doing, schoolwork or chores or whatever, having a parent make you less social is a positive. The negatives tend to come in with parents who live vicariously through their kids. And you see this a lot with sports. You have parents who want to relive their youth through their kids. And so they get them in every sports event. They're doing traveling teams. They're doing tournaments, and their entire life is consumed with going out and doing these sports, not because the kid really wants to do it, but because the parent wants to do it. And that's where it gets dangerous, and that's where you kind of have to be careful.
Yeah, you also mentioned the idea of helicopter parents. And do you think a helicopter parent could also cause a child to be less social in a more negative light?
I think a helicopter parent who's overly cautious, and unfortunately in today's society, it's not unjustified to be overly cautious of your children, but a helicopter parent could really put too much fear in their kids and transfer their own fear to their kids and have them make them be less social as a result. So yes, there's definitely that negative effect.
So really, like, depending on what type of parent you can be, either you live vicariously through your kids, you're a helicopter parent, or there's some other combination of it. A parent can always cause a child to be less social in a positive light, but also in a more negative light.
Absolutely. There's a lot of different examples of bad parents out there that can cause this type of problem to happen. You have parents that aren't involved at all with their kids. And as a result, their kids are overly social. They wind up getting into groups that are a bad influence on them. They wind up getting into substance abuse issues. And parents should be doing something about their kids, but they're not. And they allow their kids to basically run free with no constraints on them at all. And that's not a good thing either.
All right. Final question in this section goes to you, Mommy. Are there right and wrong ways of teaching a kid how to be social, and what would you say they are?
Well, yeah, there's, I think you need to, have your child interact, out in the real world, and not keep them, at home all the time. And, children should be, seen and not heard, because you see it time and time again where, a parent has their child out, shopping or at a restaurant or what's so funny?
Nothing.
Okay. And they are totally misbehaving because they don't know how to act because, the parent never took the child out in public. So the child has no idea how to act socially, like what's the right way, to act. Where, Daddy and I, when you were a baby, you went out, you did things. If you cried, we took care of it. Or, there was really only one time ever that we actually left someplace because we couldn't get you to stop crying. It was just you were upset about something. You either didn't feel well or whatever. And unfortunately, you were a baby, so you couldn't tell us what was wrong. We did all the things. We changed you. We fed you. We burped you. We did this, all the...
We beat you.
No, we didn't do that.
We put the pillow over your head.
No, we didn't do that either. But, we went through all the things and it just got to the point. So we didn't want to be that parent where we were ruining everybody else's time. But then there were multiple times where we would go places and people would compliment us on how well behaved you were and how polite you were. And that was a testament to us raising you to be, socially aware and a polite, well-behaved child. So there's right ways to do it and there's wrong way. And, but then the parent themselves also have to be, a well-behaved person because some parents themselves aren't, well-behaved. So it's kind of hard to teach your child how to be well-behaved if you don't know how to behave.
Yeah, I think one of the keys is that the parents have to be socially competent. If the parents aren't socially competent and the child's being raised by parents who have no social skills, the child's not going to get any social skills because, one, there's no one to set the example, and two, there's no perceived need to have them in the first place.
That makes sense.
So that's one of the I think overriding factors of that.
All right. I think this segment went well.
I think it did as well.
All right, we'll take a quick break and then we'll move on to the next segment.
Okay.
Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Teens. Today we're on our perspectives on parenting. We're talking about getting them ready. And now I'm going to ask some questions about instilling good behavior in them. Them being children, by the way. All right. To start us off with the first question, we'll go to you, Dad. So what forms
I've been demoted from father.
So, what forms of good behavior should a parent try to instill in their child?
Without getting overly verbose, I think the basics. You want your kids to be honest. You want your kids to be hardworking. And you want your kids to treat other people decent. I think if you can get those three, qualities instilled in your kids, everything else kind of falls in line at that point in time. And keep your expectations realistic. You're not gonna turn your kid into a philanthropic genius overnight, but you have to demonstrate to them these skills and these qualities. You have to be honest. You have to treat them with respect and make sure that you're kind to them and kind to others. One of the things that my mother always instilled in me was her compassion. She had this overwhelming compassion for everyone. There wasn't anyone my mother ever turned away who needed help. We might not have had enough food on the table for the family, but if somebody needed help and she could take somebody in and give them a roof over their head and a warm meal and get them back on their feet, she would do it in an instant. And that leaves a lasting impression on kids when you see your parents act in noble ways like that, I think.
That makes sense. Any other traits you'd like to add, or you think he kind of covered it?
No, I would say just raise your kids to be decent human beings. That's, I think, if
they're human beings.
Well,
for the aliens out there, we don't want to discriminate.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's the top level. If you are raised them to be a decent human being, everything else kind of just falls into place.
All right, that's fair. Turning it over to you, Mommy.
Okay.
How do you feel the actions of the parent can affect how good-natured or well-behaved their child is?
Well, I think that comes into play where you're setting that example. If Daddy and I are, you see that we are, walking down the street and we see somebody that's homeless and we're like, screw them, and and we, kick over their cup or something and we're all jerky or whatever, well, you're going to be like, all right, well, I have to be a jerk to everybody. Or in some cases, maybe that would even make you not want to be like that because you realize that's the bad example. But I think when you see, hopefully the good example that the parents are setting, that makes the child want to set that good example. But then again, you have parents that go out of their way to have good examples, but the child just doesn't see it or has some sort of issue where, nope, I'm not going to be like that. I want to be the exact opposite of my parents. So as parents, you kind of hope for the best, that you do enough to show what's right and wrong, enough for your child to make that own, their own decision.
Yeah, because you can't always guarantee that the kid's going to really even be listening to your example or doing the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people are just rotten to the core, and you can't get past that.
Right.
Fair enough. All right, turning this over to you, Daddy. Is this something that can be entrusted by outside forces like school or peers to be taught to kids?
Yes, it can. In so much as these types of behaviors can be instilled through discipline. And you can even go so far as to say the military. You've got a lot of kids that come out of high school who don't know who they are, don't know what they want to be, and they're wild and dangerous. and they wind up in the military, and the military gives them that discipline, that structure that they need, because they might not be getting it at home. So yes, there's a place that schools can serve as a tool to that end. Is it their responsibility? Should parents abdicate their responsibility to the schools to do that? Absolutely not. This type of behavioral training or learning has to happen at home. And when parents forego that and parents decide that they're not responsible for teaching their kids how to behave properly, then you run into all kinds of societal problems. And the kids run into all kinds of, disciplinary problems, academic problems, legal problems. And I think that's where a good portion, and I hate to put all the blame on the parents, but I think a lot of the crime that you have in society today, a lot of the cruelty and the hatred that you see in today's society, I want to put that blame on parents, because I think if you had better parenting, better mentoring at home, and parents who took the time and exercised the responsibility to raise your kids right, society would be a better place today. All too often, we want to abdicate that responsibility and say, well, the school system should do that, or the government should do it, or go into the military, we're going to send you to the military. No, you need to be a good parent. That's really what it boils down to. And a good parent's primary concern is, one, protect your children, and two, make sure they become productive citizens in society. And if you can't make sure those two things happen, then you failed as a parent. Now, sometimes protecting your kid is hard to do in today's society because of people who have failed the system. But no one has any excuse for not raising your kids right. You can go through the motions, and like we said, the kids might not take it, and they just might be rotten to the core. There are literally people out there that are just bad people. But if the parents didn't put the effort in, you can't blame the child. You have to blame the parents at that point. So I can't say that schools are responsible for this. Schools can do this. Your peers can do this. Peers become mentors, as you grow older. So they can do it. And they should, to a certain extent, do it because it's the right thing to do. But ultimately, it has to start with the parents.
That's understandable. All right, the next question is for you, Mommy. In what ways can a parent instill both good and bad behaviors in children?
Well, I think that's by whatever example you're showing your child. Kind of the whole, if you go out to a restaurant and you totally become a Karen in, I want to see the manager and this is horrible, and and you're constantly complaining because nothing is done right when you're going over and above and showing that to your child's going to see them and think either, oh, this is the way I have to be. I have to be a jerk in order to get what I want. Or your child might say, you know what, that was really kind of wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be like that. So you always hope for the best. But I think also showing, the right example. Hey, if something went wrong, this is the way you take care of it. You don't just go off the handle like that, or, how to deal with anger or how to deal with something that goes wrong. And, so that you don't have that anxiety or the issues of having that bad behavior learned. You kind of go, okay, this is how I deal with it, and I move on, and everything is better. So, but then there are parents that they think the way that they're raising their kids is right, when other parents would look at them and go, no, you shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't be like that. That's one of the things where kids don't learn how to be a bully from other kids. They learn it from, other adults, that then those kids would learn it from that. You don't have the kids sitting around and a kid just decides to say something mean to somebody else. They said it because they heard somebody older or saw it on TV or something. So the parents need to kind of teach, okay, this is the right way to do it. This is the wrong way to do it. And again, it kind of goes back to, the schools and things like that, where, yes, it's not the school's responsibility. The parents have to set that foundation. But the other part of it, too, is when you think about how many hours a day you're in school, you're actually in school and with those people longer than you are with your own family. So while it's almost like a co-op of sorts. You have to have the help from the school. Not saying that it's 100% their responsibility, but again, if the parents lay that foundation, then everything else builds up from it. Kind of like, if I teach you to be a decent human being, everything else should come naturally and should be teaching you everything. Oh, okay, well, if I think, all right, decent human being, would I do this or would I do this? No, this makes sense. Doing that would be the bad thing. And hopefully then it kind of makes the rest of the lessons go smoothly.
That makes sense. All right, next question is for you, Father.
Oh, I've been promoted again.
So is teaching...
Mr. Whale, this question is for you.
Anyway. Anyway, is teaching nothing about good or bad behaviors to children something to make a deal over or not?
That's a tough question. There's an argument to be made to curb what you're teaching your kids when it comes to certain things. Kids are developing, their brains are still developing. So if you impose your fears on kids and you try to teach them about some of the terrible things that happen, and talk about current events now. You've got the war in Gaza right now. You've got the war in Ukraine. There's a lot of things. The COVID experience. There's a lot of serious things that go on in the world that are anxiety inducing. And while you want kids to learn from these things and mature from them and take something positive away from them, in trying to get to that positive outcome, you can very easily overwhelm a kid's senses, and you can very easily scare them and scar them with the imagery that you see on TV and the repeated atrocities that are happening. So when it comes to stuff like that, there's an argument to be made to tone it down, not do away with it entirely, because kids are going to see this stuff on the news. They're going to hear about it. Their friends are going to talk about it. And they're going to have questions, and they're going to need guidance to understand what these things mean and how it affects them and so forth. But you don't want to throw them, into the fire and give them everything. So there's a certain level of discretion, I think, that's involved in that parents really need to understand their kids. And this is part of going back and being a good parent. It's not just about setting an example. It's about understanding the audience. And it's about knowing what kind of message is best received, and sometimes dwelling on some of the negative things or even being overly optimistic sets the wrong tone. So I think parents have to understand their kids. You have to respect your kids, and you have to talk to your kids. Every kid is different. And the only way you're going to know how to present information and lessons to your kid is to get to know them. And sometimes that requires a certain amount of discretion to make sure that you're not oversaturating them with positive or negative, I think.
That's fair. All right, for a bit of personal experience, Mommy, what have you done to instill good behaviors in me?
What have you done?
I locked you in a closet. No.
What didn't you do?
I don't know. What didn't I do? I think
The beatings will continue until you're...
morale improves. I don't know. I for the most part, you were a really good kid. You're still a good kid. Like we never really went through. Like, I can look back at so far in the last 17 years, and there really hasn't been the, oh my God, do you remember this time when, you know,
I do.
whatever.
Yeah, I remember.
But I don't. I don't know if it's because I have blocked it out. Like, am I not remembering things? Like, obviously we had ups and downs, especially like everybody going through puberty. You know, your emotions go out of whack, but because we talk about it, and I think that's actually been very helpful. I think the fact that we have this understanding between all of us for the most part. You know, there are obviously things that you don't want to talk to Daddy about because it's, you know, a girl thing, a female thing, you know.
And Daddy's very grateful for that, too,
right?
by the way.
Or you're more empathetic than him.
Right, or that
I'm
too.
empathetic.
Not always. Sure, we'll go with that. But I think because we've always had that open communication where Daddy knows a whole lot more about female reproduction than he ever wanted to learn. And but I think that was helpful. It wasn't, well, go and talk to your mother about this. I don't want to know about this, you know. And I think that also helped. So when the mood swings hit, he understood.
Daddy knew to bring chocolate home those days.
Right. And when you brought chocolate home, everything was right with the world. And it was like, oh, yeah. So that's probably been, you know, our biggest hurdle in terms of that. The other, you know, thing is, you know, schoolwork and school grades, and the biggest hurdle there is getting you to believe in yourself, really.
We're not there yet, so we're discussing that in a minute, so we can hold off on that for the time being.
I think it's just, you know, it's been, you know, there's always that little hurdle that we have, but we talk things out. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that we talk about it and we communicate. And if it's something, I don't want to talk about it now. Okay, we don't talk about it now, but we'll talk about it later. And we talk things through. And sometimes it doesn't make sense when we're talking about it. But then it's kind of like you have that epiphany of, oh, okay, this kind of makes sense now. All right, I see your point. Or I don't really believe what you're saying, but it does make sense. And hopefully at some point I'll believe you, you know, that you say, you know, what it is. And I think you realize that we have your best interest at heart. We want you to succeed. And whatever we, you know, can do for you, we will.
All right. I think that's, you know, solid.
Thanks.
I'm sorry. I don't know.
Thumbs up.
I'm starting to lose it. Sorry. All right. So the last question we'll go over for this segment, leaning towards you, Father.
Mr. Whalen.
Mr. Whalen. Do you feel instilling good behavior in kids is a more difficult task for certain parents?
Yes. There are parents who don't exhibit the behavior that they want their kids to exhibit. And when that happens, the parents come across as hypocrites. My father was that way. My father expected a certain level of behavior if you were out in public or if you were at home with family. And my father expected respect. He was big on demanding respect. And unfortunately, you can't demand respect. Respect is something that's earned. And the way that my father treated us was on a level, several levels below where he treated perfect strangers. And as a result, there was very little respect that I could have for him. So when that sort of expectation is there and you as a parent can't deliver on it yourself, it's very difficult for that parent to dictate how you should behave. That's why I think the most important lesson are lessons your parents teach you through their example. If your parents are decent people, if they're respectful, if they have pride in you and self-confidence in you, those things transfer down to you. Unfortunately, so do their negative traits. If your parents lack ambition, or if they're lazy, or if they're disrespectful, or they insult people, or they're negative, those traits transfer down to the kids as well. So I think a parent can't demand or expect any more of their kid than they're willing to do themselves, because the kid's not going to respect you at that point in time. And if anything, that's going to cause your kids to rebel against you. And that in and of itself is a lesson.
That is fair. I think that was a good way to end this. All right, so we will be back after a short break, and when we do, we're going to be talking about looking after your kids' educational needs.
All righty.
We'll be right back.
Insights into Entertainment, a podcast series taking a deeper look into entertainment and media. Our husband and wife team of pop culture fanatics are exploring all things from music and movies to television and fandom. We'll look at the interesting and obscure entertainment news of the week. We'll talk about theme park and pop culture news. We'll give you the latest and greatest on pop culture conventions. We'll give you a deep dive into Disney, Star Wars, and much more. Check out our video episodes at youtube.com/insightsintothings. Our audio episodes at podcast.insightsintoentertainment.com, or check us out on the web at insightsintothings.com.
Welcome back to Insights into Teens. Today on Perspectives on Parenting, we're looking at getting them ready. And now we're going to talk about looking after your kids' educational needs. So to keep with the order, Mommy, the first question is for you.
Okay.
So what do you feel are some of the most important educational needs of a child?
Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Making sure that they get a good education is probably the biggest thing. Obviously, everybody learns differently, so you have to make sure that your child is in an environment where they can excel. I think any child can excel. It just is a matter of, are they being taught the right way? Because everybody learns different ways. So what works for one child might not work for another child. So I think that's a big thing is knowing where your child's limitations are, what do they excel in, what do they need help in, and to try and help them navigate that so that they can succeed.
All right, that's fair. Want to comment on any of that?
Nope. I think she's spot on there.
Woohoo!
Alrighty.
Right answer.
Next question is for you then. Should there be a line between what parents have to teach their kids and what they should learn in school? Something I feel like, is kind of put in question a lot in the modern day. So.
Oh, absolutely. And I think my take on it is parents should teach their kids wisdom and schools should teach the kids knowledge. So you learn book knowledge and your maths, your sciences, your languages, all that comes from school. And I'm perfectly fine with that. How to use that knowledge is what is wisdom, right? So then your parents teach you that. How to utilize the abilities that you gain from school, when to utilize them, and how best to put them to use that benefits society. That's what your parents should be teaching you to do. I think schools can't do that. And schools can't do that because school's job is not to do that. School's job is to dump knowledge into you, teach you the subjects. And when schools try to teach you the moral side of those things, that's where they run into problems. Because schools are institutions of the state. And the state itself is, by its very nature, biased. I think parents who it's their responsibility to raise productive members of society should be the ones that are teaching their kids how to use that knowledge and how to interact in society, while schools can maintain the control of that knowledge and teaching of that knowledge with the oversight of parents. Parents should have control over the knowledge that you get. Parents shouldn't abdicate teaching kids about history. And I'm talking real history, not watered down history that make people uncomfortable. History is history, and that's what you should be taught, even if some of the subjects may be sensitive or uncomfortable or may not hold a certain light to individuals or institutions in this country. It's history, and it's worth learning. Your sciences are the same thing. Let the parents be the ones to teach kids the intricacies of how that knowledge is then used for the betterment of society, and keep the schools out of the raising of the kids. They should be the teaching the kids.
All right. I definitely think that's fair. So this question kind of goes along with that, and despite that we haven't gotten entirely your opinion on the full matter, I still think it would be good to get part of your perspective on this, Mommy. So due to more neglectful or restrictive parenting, should schools be required to teach a bit more about sensitive topics?
Well, I don't think it's the school's responsibility. It's someone's responsibility. And I think that's where you kind of have to, let the school kind of gauge where, something might be lacking, and where, a teacher should reach out to the parent saying, hey, did you know such and such was going on with your child? Because in some cases, the parent might not know because, maybe when the child is at home, they act, one way, but yet when they go to school, they're a completely different person. And especially if it's a bad behavior or something along those lines. So, again, they're going to school to learn and to get that knowledge. But again, like I had said, kids are in school far more hours than they are at home, during the week. And then of course, if you have parents that are divorced, where then their time is even more split between, different parents or whatever the parents' work schedule might be. So I don't want to say that, the school needs to be surrogate parents, but again, it's a cooperative between, the school or whatever education, or if it's a club or something that, a child is involved with. Hopefully there's some sort of advisor that is seeing something that maybe the parent's not seeing, that they can at least bring it to the parent's attention and say, hey, listen, we realize, this is going on. Did you even know about it? Do you even, realize that this is an issue? And kind of go from there.
That's fair. All right, turning it over to you, Mr. Whalen. Do teens' educational needs include more than just academics?
Absolutely. And I think we touched on, one of the most significant aspects of this when we talked about socializing and social skills in the first segment. Socializing isn't something that's in a book, right? You don't take a course on how to be social. Social interactions happen as a byproduct of being in a school with multiple kids and adults who are your teachers or your counselors or stuff. So there's more that happens. There's more information and knowledge that's imbued on you than is what's in the textbooks. So yes, I absolutely agree with that. And you can take that a step past that to nutrition and physical education, the basic health understandings, learning your information to learn to drive, stuff like that. There's so much that happens in school that's not just academic related that's important for kids' growth. Creativity is another one. Even though it's considered an academic activity, your ability to express yourself creatively is something that's nurtured in school that's really not an academic. You don't get graded on whether or not you can draw a pretty picture or not, but your ability to express yourself through that way is something that's nurtured in school as well. So definitely more than just academics.
All right. We'll move the next question to you, Mommy. So what topics do you feel schools need to prioritize more or add to get kids ready for the real world?
Well, I think now, a class that you'll actually have later this year, your personal finance class. That was something that we never had in high school, really. I think unless you were a business major or, taking business classes, is how do you even balance a checkbook? How do I pay bills? How do I, get car insurance? These are things that, you're going to need to learn how to do. I'm kind of, the one thing I kind of wish you did have was, I know when I was in middle school and we started having these electives and things, home ec was one of them. It was basic cooking, basic sewing. We also did wood shop, and other things. So you kind of got a little taste of that. And that was something where now, if you wanted to take a cooking class, you could, but with all of your other classes that you have, for engineering and stuff, you don't have that space available. But I think something like that should be something that's taught. Just basic, everyday survival of, how to do the laundry and things like that. Not necessarily that it needs to be a class, because again, that should be something that, that's done at home. But I think if your parents aren't ones that like to cook or know how to cook, I think if you were in an environment with your friends on how to cook, you'd have more fun learning it. Where, there are some people that have fun cooking with their family if their family likes to cook. There are some, families that don't like to cook, or have relatives that do cook. So I think that would be something. I'm surprised they've gotten away from that and added all these other things, because the other thing too is, while it's great that you can end up graduating high school and have all of these college credits, there are some kids that, end up having like double majors in high school now, where they're graduating high school already with an associate's. And it's like, okay, so now what do you do? You're still only 18 years old. You still have a lot of learning to still do. What's that piece of paper going to do? Are you really ready for the real world? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. So I think in some cases there's more pressure on kids your age than when, Daddy and I went to school. But yet I think also you guys have more advantages because there's more information out there. But I think in a lot of cases, it's almost information overload too. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword where you have it better in some cases, but I think you're kind of lacking in others because there's so much more out there to do. Like some of the classes you're taking are things that I couldn't take until college. And it's funny because I remember having this same conversation with my parents when I was in 8th grade, and what I was learning, they didn't learn until college as well. And I was actually using their college textbook to help me with a report. So it's, I get to now see that kind of full circle of, oh, well, back in my day, I didn't do that until I went to college or I went to a trade school. And now it's, oh, I'm doing that in 7th grade. Psh. So, yeah. So I think that's kind of where, again, double-edged sword. I think there's a lot that should be taught, but then there's a lot that you're being taught that somebody would have had to go to college for. So.
Fair enough. All right, now we get to the college questions.
Awesome.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, sorry.
All right, first of them goes to you, Daddy. Should parents
I don't
be...
know who I'm going to be by the end of this.
So should parents be the ones fully responsible for sending their kids to college?
Absolutely not. Somebody else should pay for it.
And if so, who?
Please write us a check.
No, and you know what? It's funny. I was thinking about this question. The college boards agree. And that's why the college boards don't just look at your academic transcript. They look at the clubs that you're in. They look at the charity work that you do. They look at who you are. They try to look at who you are as a person. They look at personality. They look at everything. And the person that you become isn't the person that you are on your test score sheets, on your CVE or CV. It's the person who is in that after school club, or the person who volunteers at the soup kitchen or at the animal shelter. These are all the various different things that help you get to college and put you through college. Now, that's just talking about the personality and the morality, the character development side of things. But outside of that, from a financial standpoint, there's tons of different things that can help you financially get through college and get to college. The parents shouldn't think that the burden is all on their own to send you to college, keep you in college, and buy your books and all that. There's a lot of help that's out there. And a lot of that comes from you, too. A lot of it comes from your academic achievements. The higher you score on on your academic efforts, the easier it is to get financial aid. So you're helping to pay part of your college just from your performance. It's not just the parents. I think the parents have a large role in it. I think I look at it from a strictly dollar and cent standpoint. If you look at it that way, it's an investment. Your parents getting you to college and getting you through college is an investment for your future. And if there's one thing that parents want for their kids, it's for them to be successful. And whatever you do, whatever you choose to go to college for, whatever you choose to do in life afterwards, even if you choose not to go to college, mommy and daddy want you to be successful and we want you to be happy. And, success lends itself to happiness. So it's an investment there, but it's also the community who helped to build you into that person that makes you successful. We can't take credit for it. The majority of the effort comes from your part, but there's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of help along the way. Some of that comes from friends. It comes from your peers. It comes from mentors that you're going to be associated with. You're taking a trip to Japan. That trip to Japan, very few kids are going to take that trip before they get out of high school. You're going to learn a ton, not just about Japan, but about life. You're going to learn about travel. You're going to learn about finance. You've already learned about finance because you've had to finance a portion of that trip. All these things are what get you to college. And I'm not just talking financially, I'm talking knowledge-wise. And these are things that are going to serve you through college and after college through life. So no, it's not just the parents. There's a lot of factors that go into your success moving forward, not the least of which is your own.
All right, fair enough. You get the big one, Mommy.
Oh boy.
So, let's get this one out of the way. And I'm already flubbing it. Great. Is college inherently necessary for someone to live a successful life?
No.
Okay, moving right along.
Hey!
College is not for everybody. While it's, again, back in the day, you had the people that went to college and the people that didn't. And depending on what your test scores were, you were either a college prep or you weren't. That was how it was back, when I was in school, depending on what your grades were. Oh, you're going to college. Okay. Or, okay, so if you're not going to college, then what are you doing? Are you going into the military or are you going and working at the gas station? It was, almost like an insult to the person that didn't go to college. And sometimes the person wasn't going to college because of financial reasons, because it was just too expensive to do that. So if you have to want to do it, there are kids that their parents tell them you're going to college whether you like it or not, and then that kid ends up in college for 10 years because they go to school and they don't know what they want to major in, so they major in one thing and they do that for a couple of years and they don't like that and they move on to something else, and you get that professional student where they just keep getting more and more degrees because they don't want to go into the real world. They just rather stay. I think nowadays there's so many technical schools out there where that might be better suited for for a student or for a child to go into that aspect. You have to do what you want to do. If it's something where you want to be in the medical field, you want to work in that, then you have to go to college. Unless you want to be a medical tech, then you would go to, a technical school that deals with that. you want to be a lawyer. Well, you have to go to law school. Then you have to go to college. Depending on what it is that you want to do, then there's a certain path that you have to follow. If it's something where you're not sure, should you still go to college? Well, maybe that's where you decide to kind of stay more local. Maybe you decide to go for an associate's degree where you go to a community college and kind of test the waters and see what it is that you like. And that's where I think nowadays high school has kind of become almost that precursor to having these choice schools and having these academies or these majors that you can have in high school where you can kind of test the waters and see, ooh, do I want to do a career in music? Do I want to do a career in nursing? Do I want to do a career in business? And you start taking these classes and you realize, wow, I really hate this.
Or do you want to do a career in truck driving?
Or do you want to be a truck driver? That's, a noble career as well. You have to do what makes you comfortable, like Daddy said, what makes you happy, where you feel you're going to be successful. And success is based on what you feel. You might only make, $50,000 a year, but you're completely happy. Where you could be making $100,000 a year and you're completely miserable. It's all a matter of perspective. So you have to do, what makes you happy. Maybe working in that corporate environment makes you absolutely miserable. So you don't want to do it. But, working in, a clinic, a veterinary clinic or something, as a technician makes you happy. You're not making as much money, but you're happy. You go home at the end of the day feeling fulfilled. That's what, you have to figure out what will make you happy. What do you feel will be successful, and what path do you need to get there? Is it college? Is it engineering? Is it music? Is it art? Is it computer science? What is it that brings you joy? That's really kind of the main thing that you have to look at, and then just kind of go from there.
All right, I'm not going to ask you if college is right for me. We're not going to go down that path
Yes,
today.
you are going to college whether you like it or not. No.
Okay.
No, seriously, we've had this discussion. We had, kind of the precursor to this discussion when it came to National Honor Society. I'm just saying, this is where we talked about it, and you were very adamant that you didn't want to do it. You probably could have gotten in if you had applied and you were asked to apply. You got the invitation to apply, and you chose not to. That was your decision.
We did negotiate at least 2 years of college.
Right.
Just for the record.
Right. And we did say, and that's because we felt, because of where your grades are, we know you're going to get into a 4-year school. There's no question about it. And that's the other thing too, is nowadays there's a college out there for everybody. Now you can go.
Even truck drivers?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I wouldn't be surprised. You can go anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, and there is a college available. If you want to do a virtual school, there are tons of virtual schools out there. So if you never want to set foot on a campus somewhere, you still have the ability to take classes and get a degree. Because again, the world has changed in the last 10, 15 years, and it's so much more accessible to do that. If it's something where we start visiting colleges and there's nothing that sparks any sort of joy in you, where you're like, nope. we're not going to force you to go to Pennsylvania, to go to North Jersey, to go to Delaware, to go to Virginia, to go to Florida, for school. That's where we had said, well, then stay local and at least get that associate's degree, and then let's see where you are. So that this way you can say, you know what, I tried it, I did it. What have we always said growing up? At least try something once, and if you don't like it, you never have to do it again. And that's kind of where we've kind of decided, with college. And that might be a conversation that other kids need to have with their parents, because their parents might be setting these grand expectations for their kids when, if they just actually sat and had the conversation with their child, they'd realize that's not what I want to go and do. I want to do this. And then, everybody's happy that way.
Alrighty.
You look very happy now.
Okay, hopefully this is the last question we've got, and honestly, I think it's set up right for you to answer it. So, personal one, again. How do you help provide me with my educational needs?
I do absolutely nothing.
And like it.
No, encouragement. I think that's the biggest thing. Be there for your kids. We study a lot. We try to find the best study technique that works for you. And we'll try one way. If you don't get the scores you want, we'll try a different way. And try to get you excited. I try to get you interested in things. I think when you're interested in the subjects that you have, and granted, the period in history that you're doing right now, it's very difficult to get interested in. You have to have some vested interest in it. And one of the things I try to do is make it interesting, make it fun. We study for your chemistry. We try to make that fun. I'll find videos that show a little bit extra, or give you a little bit more background on some of the historic stuff that we do. I won't touch math with a 10-foot pole, though. That's not my area of expertise, so that's all you.
We figured that out.
Yeah, what do I do? I try to make it interesting. I try to keep you, focused on it. I try to not make it a grind. And I think a lot of kids run into the situation where school can be a grind. It gets boring. It's topics you don't want to talk about. And I think if parents can pique their kids' interest, can first of all notice that kids are zoning out, or that they're not interested in what they're talking about, and encourage your kids. I think that's the biggest thing. My parents were very hands-off when it came to school, unless I brought home bad grades, and then they yelled at me. And I think that's the wrong approach. Yep. Parents need to get involved with their kids before there's a need to yell at them. Because if there's a need to yell at your kids, it's probably because you haven't been involved with them. So get involved with them, encourage them, and try to make it a little bit more entertaining. That's all I got.
All right, that's fair. That's all we had for today. So did you want to do a quick break, and then we'll come back with closing remarks and
You
such?
got it. Here we go.
All right, so this was the end of our supposed to be one episode segment on top challenges of parenting. Overestimated how long the answers were specifically, but
Parenting's really hard. We had to do a number of episodes.
But hey, I think we got the most out of it, because we were still able to get to everything. So now we can get into some of the more interesting topics outside of this for our next ones, although that's going to be obviously a while from here.
All right.
But thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having me too.
No problem.
Now that I know my 12 names.
Yeah, that was fun. So, thank you for joining us. And before we go completely, I'd like to give us a bit of start our show plugs. So, when it comes to our subscriptions, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and really anywhere you can get a podcast. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. We're on Twitter or X, whatever you really go by at this point, at insights_things. We have high-res videos on YouTube at youtube.com/insightsintothings. We stream 5 days a week on Twitch at twitch.tv/insightsintothings. You can find audio versions of this podcast listed as podcast.insightsintoteens.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/insightsintothingspodcast. We're on Instagram at instagram.com/insightsintothings. And you can find links to all these and more on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com. And that is it.
That's it. Another one in the books.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Insightful podcasts by informative hosts. Insights into Things, a podcast network. Welcome to Insights into Teens, a podcast series exploring the issues and challenges of today's youth. Your hosts are Joseph and Madison Whalen, a father and daughter team making their way through the challenges of the teenage years.
Welcome to Insights into Teens. This is episode 189, Technology Addiction. I'm your host, Joseph Whalen, and my creative and insightful co-host, Madison Whalen.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing today, Maddie?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Doing as well as it can be with another 80-degree day out there. So
Fair enough.
we have a little bit of background noise today. We actually cranked up the air today in the studio here, so for those of you listening live, I apologize for that. We'll filter that out in post. We can fix anything in post, right?
Usually.
So how you been? It's been a couple of weeks since we did a podcast. What's going on? Anything new?
I'm not really sure. Just trying to get through life and so forth.
Wow, that's deep.
Okay, didn't mean it to be like that. I'm just going, I guess.
So today we're going to talk about technology addiction, which I consider myself a subject matter expert on, just putting that out there to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I've been addicted to technology for quite some time now.
As you can see.
Well, yeah. So technology addiction parallels drug addiction in terms of its impact on the brain. Over 90% of teenagers engage with addictive technology like social media and video games. And approximately 50% of teens acknowledge feeling addicted to smartphones. On today's episode of Insights into Teens, we'll talk about this serious issue and how to combat it. But before we do that, I want to take a moment to invite our listening audience to subscribe to the podcast. You can find audio versions of this podcast listed as Insights into Teens. You can find video and audio versions of this and all the network's podcasts listed as Insights into Things. And you can find us anywhere you can find a podcast: Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, etc. I would also invite you to write in, give us your feedback. You can email us at comments@insightsintothings.com. You can find us on X, formerly Twitter, at insights_things. Or you can get links to all that and more on our official website at www.insightsintothings.com. Are we ready?
Sure.
Here we go. So what is technology addiction? Seems pretty straightforward from the term. Numerous studies have established a parallel between tech dependencies and drug addiction, revealing comparable effects on the brain. Alarmingly, over 90% of teenagers are engaged with social media and video games, two prominent sources of addictive technology. Strikingly, around 50% of teens openly acknowledge being addicted to their smartphones, indicating a significant concern.
Although not officially classified as a disorder in diagnostic manuals, tech addiction goes by various names such as internet addiction disorder, compulsive internet use, and eye disorder. But, as in the tech eye, not R.
The letter I, not the body part I.
Estimates suggest that nearly 38% of individuals in the United States and Europe might grapple with tech dependence. Research underscores that technology usage triggers brain pathways similarly to how significant substances affect drug addicts. Notably, activities like gaming and social media release endorphins and dopamine, driving cravings for more stimulation. The continuous overstimulation also induces a fight-or-flight response, disrupting biological and hormonal symptoms and potentially leading to mood and mental health disorders.
In a pivotal move, the World Health Organization recognized gaming disorder as a mental health condition in 2018. The consequences of technology on mental health extend beyond addiction to encompass issues like teen depression and anxiety. Intriguingly, adults with a history of substance abuse are prone to technology addiction, highlighting a link between various forms of addictive behaviors. Research indicates that teenagers exhibiting internet addiction are more susceptible to substance abuse and eating disorders. This highlights the interconnectedness of different addictive behaviors and substances, emphasizing that the propensity for addiction transcends specific contexts.
Safeguarding teenagers from the pitfalls of technology addiction requires a comprehensive approach that acknowledges its neurological underpinnings, mental health implications, and its potential to intersect with other forms of addiction. Raising awareness about tech addiction, fostering healthy technological habits, and encouraging open discussions around digital well-being can contribute to a more balanced and sustainable relationship between teenagers and technology.
So how much time do you typically spend? I know you're not a social media person, but how much time do you typically spend on social platforms or playing video games each day?
Well, typically, I guess maybe 7 hours watching videos and then 2 to 3 hours for video games.
Now, do you feel anxious or uncomfortable if you're unable to access your smartphone or the internet?
Well, I guess it depends on the situation. If I'm alone in my room, I'm not that anxious because I'm alone in my room. I'm comfortable there. I don't really need to be I don't need to be on my phone constantly in my room. It's just, regardless, I can find ways of, keeping calm. But if I'm in a major social situation where there's a lot of people around me, maybe I'm riding the bus or something, I don't really like not having to listen to music. There's some instances I'd be fine with it, but if it's a really crowded area and I can't really listen to it, my anxiety kind of goes through the roof.
Now, is that a coping mechanism for other sources of anxiety for being in crowded areas and stuff like that? Or is it more like a comfort blanket to you? I
think I kind of use any form of technology as a way to get back into a comfort level, because usually even when I go to school and so forth, I have heightened anxiety for a variety of reasons. And I think I associate technology as a way to get away from the world and kind of either go into another reality or just focus on something else so that I don't have to focus on whatever was making me anxious.
That's interesting. So your use of technology is more an isolating move than it is as a social outreach type thing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and like there are a few times that I use it to like talk to friends and so forth, but for the most part, I kind of use it to get away from people is probably the best explanation I can give.
So then I guess this next question I want to ask is kind of answered already, but have you noticed changes in your mood or behavior that correlate with your use of technology? And it sounds like for you, it's a positive thing for you to help you cope with other anxieties. Is there any other mood altering or behavior altering effects that you've seen from technology?
I mean, if I see something that could bring up like some sort of like news thing or something that mentions something that happened in like a news article or something, that typically like can bring my mood down, because instead of focusing on a different reality or focusing on like someone else, like a commentary sort of thing or something, I am now back in reality and like I'm hearing something that's happening in the world around me and it's like, oh, I don't like that.
Interesting. Well, I joked at the top of the show that I'm a subject matter expert on this. And I really am. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit that I have an addiction to technology. You kind of can tell that, especially on like long trips, by the amount of technology that I pack up and take with me. But it's a serious thing. And the studies that we talked about here kind of parallel how the addiction to technology is indicative of addictive behavior in general. And I have an addictive personality. Obviously, you look at me on the screen, I have eating issues. I have weight issues from eating. So I'm addicted to food as much as I'm addicted to technology. So there's definitely a parallel and there's credence to that. Do you think that the way that you use technology, that you're addicted to technology or not?
I guess it kind of depends. Like there's certain things, like, I guess the best example I can give right now is kind of video games, where, well, it's different when it comes to different forms of technology. Because, like, with video games, I can get sucked into it and stay in there for, like, hours. But then it's like when I